Well,
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the North East Non-League Show. Looking back, we're sponsored by Jade Bell, Her Game 2, and Facebook sponsor DJ Private Hire. Join us tonight. We have Will Ferry and Paul Walker. Lads, thank you very much for joining us tonight.
oh, it's my pleasure. My pleasure.
Excellent. We're just waiting for Will there to come on. I know you're watching a bit of MasterChef there, getting some tips for the kitchen.
I'll turn it off.
I'll come over for me tea. So what we're going to be doing tonight is just talking to both lads about the time in the game, players they played with, managers that they've played under, and obviously just some great funny stories. I know I met Will on Saturday down the hub, and I could have literally stayed there all night talking to Will some fantastic stories that we're chatting about as well. So kind of off the script tonight as well, so just kind of going with the flow and what comes up. So starting with the early days with you lads, obviously how did it all come around with your football career starting and the clubs that you started at?
Get on, Will, you chat along with you again first.
I left school, went to Scunthorpe, well, Middlesbrough first, and then I went a bit tits up. And then I went to Scunthorpe United in Barnsley, played in Sweden, played in Belgium a bit, and then got dragged back to North East. Started to play for Everton, Stewie Sherwood with Stewie, and then ended up at Spennymoor with under Tony Mungouse, which was an experience, the funniest man you've ever met in your life. And then I went to Gisborough and Seaham Red Star and played most of my football at Seaham, which still got a big fond affection for Seaham, and had some great time there, met some great people, met some loonies as well, by the way. But no, it was good. It was good, and still stay in touch with a few like today,
Yeah.
Obviously came across Walks by playing against him for Blythe. He didn't catch me with his tripping leg, but I've seen him catch a few. Yeah, but great times. I've always said that if you had 10 years in the Northern League, you're a good player because the standard was good. Walks on it. There was some great players, and there wasn't opportunities like this today were academy football, and you only had Sunderland and Hartlepool and Darlington. And unless you left the North East, you didn't really get a chance to play pro football. So there were some great players played Northern League football who really should have played pro football. And the lad sitting next to us now is definitely one of them, But you play, like, with me being a forward, I played against Jimmy Armstrong, Steve's dad. What a player he was. Just the Rolls Royce. He never put a foot wrong. He was fantastic. Trevor Smith, who I played with at Gisborough. Trevor was a great centre-half. Mickey Smith, who played at Seaham. Jed Parkinson, who played at Seaham. Big Gambo. He was a great centre-half. And they'd leave a bit on you as well, to be fair. But that was just part of the game, There was one thing which I noticed when I was at the West End, and again last night, and I hope Walks will back us up on this because it's is if we swore in the Northern League, then you automatically sent off, and it was a Northern League rule, and they were getting away with swearing and whatever, and I can't think of the bloke's name, but me and Gambo got dragged in front of the Northern League committee at Ferrens Park, and what was the big bloke called with the dark hair and the glasses? Had a bit of a stutter, and he started stuttering, and me and Gambo started laughing, and we got escorted up to the meeting. But it was I can't think of his name. Hopefully someone listening will be able to think of his name. But that was it for me. Met some great people along the way, and still mates with a lot of them today, it's a great standard of football to play at,
Oh, it's
and
great.
you meet some great lads, you know.
Yeah,
You
I think
meet
it's
some
really
great
nice today when we shared this on Twitter. Seeing Red Star obviously spotted your name and shared it out for us on Twitter as well, which was
yeah.
absolutely fantastic.
I loved
As well
every
as
minute of him. I
some
played with
great
some
names.
toppers. Played with a lad who I'll try and get on a later date. But a lad called Paul Staff, and we were playing Gisborough one day. And he crossed the ball and I scored with my head and was an equaliser. And then about 10 minutes later, he comes running past us and he went, Kobe, I won the Grand National. I went, what's Staffy? He went, Kobe, I won the Grand National. I said, how the fucking hell do you know that? So you're supposed to be playing your game. But that was Staffy all over. Great player. He's a legend of Hartlepool and a great lad and a great player. And I played with Gibby, who, to be fair, Jesus, if there's a bigger lunatic than Gibby, I'm yet to meet him, you know. But another great player, but just did stupid things. But no, it seemed a great club, and I wish them, I wish them well because, like I said, that they were good to me, and I used to enjoy playing for them.
Yeah, really good start to the season as well.
Yeah. They have.
And what about yourself, Paul?
Bloody hell, long story. Grew in a family of four lads. Dad, who was a football manager at Hetton Juniors, Appleton Juniors, when they changed the name years ago. Football fanatic. Lived on the edge of the football field from being nappy high up till I was about 16. With my mother and all the parents that used to go watching then. My second oldest brother, Dennis, went away to West Ham when he was 16. We used to go down, I don't know, every sort of 2 months to see him. And then bumped into Roy Greenwood and said, listen, if you're going to play football in the future, son, you have to kick with 2 feet. So I done no more than go home, and there used to be a big co-op store in Easton Lane, the Brigarth where I used to live. And I drew 2 circles on the wall. And you used to be there till he got shouted to go home for your supper and you had to go to bed, and just used to practice your left foot and right foot, kicking the ball against the circle and see how many times I get it in. And that's where it sort of started. Ended up going to St Aidan's, which is in Sunderland. And I always say they send us lads in to educate the townies, you know what I mean? Because they want the brightest bunch.
Yeah, I never knew you were Catholic, walks.
Eh?
I never knew you were Catholic.
Aye, you wouldn't think it. Never mind,
No.
it's a long story. It's a long story.
I'm the same.
We'll not get into that. Left school at St Aidan's, and at St Aidan's at the time, underneath us, there was Kevin Ozzie, who was a year younger, Mickey Hazard, who was 2 years younger, and the lad from Sunderland who went to Portsmouth, the big midfield player.
Dill.
Who?
Kevin Dillon.
Kevin Dillon, I couldn't remember, he was 2 years younger. So the monster who was 3 years old was Geordie Cook. So, and Barry Wardrobe went there a bit later than me. So a lot of football in there. And I went to Sunderland from leaving. I went to Sunderland from leaving school. Left Sunderland in 76. Ended up going on trial at Grimsby, Sheffield United. Ended up at Hull City for a year and a half. That's a long story. Ended up my father nearly killed us when I come home. So I'd been on loan to Doncaster for a month at 18-year-old. Come back, lost my digs. Slept in a car the night before we played Sunderland Reserves as soon as I got back. They couldn't believe what I'd done. And I just said, bollocks, I'll just pay my contract up, which had another year left, and come home. Mm-hmm. And then ended up starting my non-league season. It's sort of hard not knowing what they expect coming out of pro football. And it was a tough school, when men were men and sheep were sheep, and nobody gave a fuck what they'd done. And them days, you got stuck in, you had to learn to survive. And, people who knows, I did learn to survive, and the second foot was the killer. You know what I mean? I learned off Tony Majori, which is one of the, I'll say one of the strangest, not the strangest, like great lad, but tough as bulls lugs. Yeah, and I went to Horden, to Scarborough, then to Blythe, Blue Star, Horden, Blythe, Whitley Bay, Bishop, and ended up the same Red Star as sort of player manager with Chrissy Copeland, rest in peace, who really was a man before he was a boy. He was he was made of steel. But you're talking about, funny enough, Will mentioned Jimmy Armisen. I bumped into him at a week on Saturday, Headlines Cricket Club, where I come from. We play in Ashton, where Jimmy comes from. So I went up to see him, and he's, God bless me, suffering a bit of Alzheimer's. He's sort of cousins there. His son was playing for Ashton, so I was talking to him. And honestly, what a bloke, Jimmy Armisen, tough as bulls lugs. I mean, you talk about Gibby. When next time you see Gibby, ask him about his front teeth, because Jimmy nutted them out in a match. He squared up and he nutted his front teeth out. So there's a lot of characters, a lot of great stories knocking around, which we'll cover later on, obviously. But great time, tough as hell.
You kill somebody who walks, couldn't you, on the pitch, and get away with it? But if you swore, you got sent off.
Right. Funny enough, that story you told there about getting sent off. The first weekend that rule came in, I got sent off. And honestly, I went up for a header, and this lad I headed the ball, he headed the ball, he's ended up heading my eye, and I've said, fucking hell. And my eye sort of split and just went up black. I got sent off for swearing, he got sent off for the tackle, the elbow.
It was shocking.
It was ridiculous.
To get sent off for swearing, it's a man's game, and I'm trying to think of who the chairman of the Northern League was.
It was this at that time. I can't remember his name. A silver-haired bloke. Can't remember. But no, some great times, some great characters, some great laughs, and the show's not long enough to go through them all. But we'll cover a couple later on.
Definitely. But like you say, there's just so many characters. I mean, we touched on it on Saturday when I was talking to Will after the game, and you see a few players go back and have a pint, but the amount of players that kind of just got straight in the car and went home, and it's sad to see, because like you say, the change room banter, and like you say, back when you played, and I can imagine going out from the youth football straight to obviously Northern League, as you say, going in that change room at that time, it was quite daunting, where now you see the young lads coming in on the phone, social media, don't really care, but when going into the change room with proper men back in those days, and the pranks, the jokes that were going on, I bet there's some good stories telling the change rooms.
You just had to, you had to learn to survive, and that was the first thing, because it was it was no holds barred. It was like sink or swim, and if you're gonna leave it in, you've got to leave it in, but you're gonna wear a few. You know what I mean? I tell it like Will knows him. Mickey Robinson first got released from Newcastle. It was a Sunday morning again. Now I ended up being playing for him. And Geordie Cook and Big Dick had said, listen, pulled Mickey Robbo, who's got a lot of front, a typical townie. He said, blah, 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 this is Walks. Walks does a favour, look after him today. Mickey Robbo looked at me and said, you're going to look after me, you fast cunt, who are you, like? And I didn't know Mickey Robbo go at him. You know what I mean? He lives to regret that, but obviously, you know what I mean?
I think the best story was little Stewie Sherwood. They might be stealing your thunder a bit, Walks. But Stewie told me, he said, she's fucking Walks, the bastard. He said, we're playing at Horden, and we were mates. We knew each other from being kids. And he says, Walks, come across. And he said, I would just see him coming, and I couldn't get out of the way. And he'd come, and there is with his front leg, and whacked us with his trailing leg, and he said, I must have ended about 4 foot up. Yeah, he'd knocked the wind out of us. He said, and he says, Walks, what your team was for? But no mates on here, Stu, no mates on here. And Stu, he tells that story still, he's a funny little fucker.
Cross the white line, man. I'm not bothered wrong.
Absolutely.
I think we were talking about as well, as that you could get away with a little bit more on the pitch. I know we were chatting about a podcast that was on with Kevin Ball, and he's battled with Vinnie Jones, and kind of saying after a couple of tackles, the ref got them both again and said, right, if any of you complain now, I'll book both of you, but just getting stuck into each other as much as you can. But anyone twists you both off. And I think that's kind of how it went back in the day, as long as you said you weren't swearing to referee and stuff like that, you could get away with a slide dig here, leaving the foot in there, couldn't you?
Well, everybody, every team in that era, even at the pro level, the reserve level, down to Nunley, they had somebody like Kevin Ball.
Yeah.
The worst I've ever played against was Jerry Gow, a Scotsman. He had curly hair and a walrus moustache. He used to give the linesman a pair of boots to check his studs before the game, and then get another pair of boots off the apprentice that had been filed down. And he was discussing, like, some of his tackles were like, X-rated. But there was lads like that in the Northern League. The lad at South Bank Walks, Jed Hartley, like, Jed was, he's a nice lad, but like some of these tackles, man, Jesus Christ, he'd take you out by the throat, but there's some lad like the lad next to you. He could play as well, and he could make it arse of you by the playing as well as catching you, Another hard player that I think was the best I played with was Kenny Mitchell. Kenny was awesome and a hard player. And God bless him, he had I think it's about 2 or 3 years for Kenny. But Kenny was fantastic. What a footballer. But Kenny could look after himself, he's a hard player. But
you mentioned Jimmy Armstrong. I mean, I've got there's another couple of tales, but I'll tell you one about Jimmy. You're talking about being secluded. We played Bath City in the FA Cup, and they just signed this centre forward from Cardiff City for, I don't know, I saved something like 10 grand, so that's 30 years ago. But they took stupid money down south, and he absolutely tore our arse out of Blythe. Anyway, we still a draw ones apiece, and the centre forward, big blonde lad, long blonde hair. Jimmy, who was a fucking Corrie lad, who was like tough as bull's lugs. He was sick of his fucking life, and honestly, 10 minutes gone in the replay down Bath. He said, "Fatty, get out the fucking hole now." What's the matter? I said, "No, I've got to get out that fucking hole." Centre forward used to make a run to the front post from the edge of the box. And Jimmy was nowhere near him. He stood at the back post. He said, "Just get out that fucking hole, will you? Now." So anyhow, big centre corner gets whipped in, big centre forward goes run to the front post, makes a jump for the ball. Jimmy jumps at the same time, and honestly, he hits him a right uppercut in midair. And I mean, in fucking midair. And this kid is sparked. And Jimmy says, "I told you to get out the fucking way. Listen to me next time." I went, fucking hell. Literally, they've come across each other in midair. The kids went to head the ball. Jimmy's went to head the ball. Like, uppercutted him on the chin, flattened him, carried off. "See you, son. Bye." We won 1-0. Got back at 6 o'clock in the morning from Bath.
Well, couldn't he? Jimmy was a fabulous sender off as well.
Great player.
He was like born long before his time, and
He was cool as any. Great striker of the ball.
The money now that get put in the professional game, they can take on like 30, 40 scholars. How many apprentices with Sunderland were you, Walks?
There was 7, there was 18, and 16 of us got released. The only 2 that got kept on was Kevin Hart and Timmy Gilbert, bless them, rest in peace. Because they were actually younger.
Aye.
Not about, you talk about football's about in decisions. I'll tell you a tale about Ozzy, and this is true.
Yeah.
Hull played Sunderland at Sunderland in the reserves. And Ozzy, I went to school with, grew up with, more or less. He's obviously known I'm playing. He's waiting for us in the reception when we get there. And he comes up, he says, "How Walks, how we doing?" Blah, blah, blah. He says, "Fucking hell, he never gets what's happened here." He says, "I've been told I'm getting released. I got told I was going to get released," and this is true, man. So he's 17 and a half at the time. And 17 and a half was he? I was, because he was still an apprentice. He got told he was getting released. 2 weeks later, the sack was it Knighton? I can't
9,
remember.
9,
Who took over?
10, 9, it was
Durban.
10, 9. No,
Durban
10,
took
9
over.
first, and then Durban took over from 9.
Durban took over. He says, you never guess what's happened. He says, his watches in 5-a-side, playing fucking one touch. He says, who's this kid? He says, 2 weeks later, he says, I'm in the first team next Saturday.
Oh,
I says, fucking hell, Aussie. And not many people know that story, and that's a true story.
No.
And he told us in the corridor, he says, I was getting released. He says, change the manager. He's coming in 2 weeks. I'm going to be in the first team. So he was 18, half 19. Couldn't believe it.
He could play as well, couldn't he?
Oh, just a bit.
Definitely some great stories.
It's Scunthorpe. I played with 2 lads who went on to win the Premier League. One lad was Neil Poynton, who played for Everton. Everton, Oldham, whatever. He won the Premier League with, it was the old Football League, but the same thing with Everton. And my best mate was a lad called Mark Atkins, who played for Blackburn Rovers when they won the league. And 2 fabulous players. But would they be able to play in the days? I'm not so sure. Neil was an unbelievable athlete, and Mark was a great footballer. But I don't know whether it would fit in the days game. I watched the West End last night, and they were playing Yarm,
Inclick, yeah,
and they overplay the pass balls in the areas which is where they're going to lose it, whatever. And there's no wrong with playing a long ball. Like Walks will tell you, we've had this conversation about looking over your shoulder and building up a picture in your head of what's going on, and then just help it into the hole. They seem that there mustn't be coach that, when they've been to the academies and that, it's so much tippy-tappy football, and there's nothing wrong with a long ball. People say, oh, you're just booting it. You're not just booting it. You're putting it in areas with a bit of quality, and even the big lads, they didn't seem to do it. It's one of my big bugbears when the goalies take short goal kicks all the time.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can work your way up the field and play in the other half of the field, and I think that's gone out of the game, and I think it's a shame. It's a shame because
it's all right. It's fine doing this, in some ways, passing the short ball, but actually people have got to be good enough to receive the ball and know what they've got to do with it. But they should know what to do before they ask for the ball.
Yeah.
But you've got the pros doing it, but they're practicing this 6 days a week. Them lads, with all due respect to them, are practicing once or twice a week. And not even that, you know what I mean? And obviously not nowhere near as technically gifted as some of the players at Man City and people like that. So I think they're just trying to replicate everything, which is fine to a degree, but they've got to be a realisation that if the capability's not there, then you're going to be able to do it. And sometimes they make an ass of themselves.
Yeah, you see the centre backs, like you say, wants to pass it out from the back, and then all of a sudden one game they come against a powerful striker who all of a sudden they do play the long balls into, and you just see these centre backs just almost crawling to the ground, don't you? Because they're just thinking, oh, I'm going to get battered around here. And you just see the striker win ball after ball after ball, and like you say, they just seem to be training now, and they even say youth training as well. It's just pass, and it just seems to be changing so much, isn't it?
Well, my junior school football teacher, Mr. Argyle, always used to say if the ball's in the opposition's off, they cannot score. And sometimes, it's right, and he wasn't a great footballer man, but it just put them under pressure, put the other team under pressure a little bit, and they're losing balls when they shouldn't be. But I don't know. I don't know whether the games. I only watch Man City, and I like watching Man City because the fabulous team.
Yeah.
But I don't watch much of the football apart from I kind of like the West End because it's a lovely little club. The lad Walks. He's from the lane.
It is. It's Reggie's, mate.
Reggie's mate, and his girlfriend is Stewie. The lad that went to jail, Stewie Gooden, and because Stewie gets out on the weekend, and I said, "Oh, tell him I was asking after him," and I said, "If you can get it, I'll give him a shout. You know, he's a good lad, Stewie." But I said the lad, "Do you not know Paul Walker?" And she went, "No." I says, "Well, I think if you check, your boyfriend will definitely have heard of him."
That's Wardle. It's Wardle. He lives next door to Reggie. He lives in the lane.
Does he? I never knew Gary. I seen him play. He was a good, but I never knew Gary like I knew Reggie. Reggie was a handful, to say the least.
He's a tale for you. We were playing down Thornaby for same Red Star, and they had this little shit in the middle of the park, and his name was Chelsea, right? So anyhow, cut a long story short, me and Reggie said, "Listen, somebody's gonna get it today, Reggie. He's got to get a hold of him, and we'll snap him." It's because he's a proper little shit, a typical smuggle, full in your face and everything. He's only about 5 foot. He's only about 5'5", but what a little shit. Anyhow, cut a long story short, he gets a ball played in the middle of the park, hits his knee, bounces off him in the mud, and he's got a gun. And honestly, he went for the ball, but obviously he got took off by the hips, and he's squealing like a little ass. Reggie just anymore, his little one-liner, straddles over the top of him and goes, "Oh, Chelsea!" And he looks up. You've just been fucking Millwalled.
If you knew Walks, mate, if you knew Reggie, mate, you would say, "Aye, that's what he'd say." He was and he was a handful as well, by the way.
No, he's a bruiser.
But again, a tough lad. There's a few that's come off the lane in there. That there was some good players.
They used to get the town look after you, though. You know what I mean?
I know. It's quite scary. There's not many lads that come from Sunderland who can undo a lot because they think the world ends at Pension Monument.
But I always found that there's some cracking players in Sunderland. Not many of them want to venture out and get into the big bad world. You know what I mean? And
and Ben just mentioned in the comments there. Evening, Ben. Thank you very much for watching. Two great players and lads. That's from Ben in the comments as well. I know Paul's just texted as well to say great show so far. Hopefully another couple of hours to go. He says lots of great stories so far. So later on the show, we're going to be chatting about, obviously we always go through a quick fire round and asking about your best managers and players and stuff like that. But I know he's getting together a lot, and obviously, as I can imagine, over a couple of pints, the stories will start, and it's just stories after stories. I mean, what's the stories when you are together, which is the best ones that always come up that you're always trying to tell around the table?
The best one Walks tells is when Gambo's supposed to man Martin.
I was going to leave Gambo out of this, but you started. So Gambo's listening to this, he'll be cursing me.
He will be. He'll curse me, what the fucking hell you said that for? But Walks and tell us a couple of times, and it's so funny.
It's a funny story, honestly. We go Blythe go to Blue Star. Blue Star have just getting promoted, and obviously they're doing well. They fancy themselves. Skifey's injured, so he's not playing. He's sitting on the bench. John Reach is sitting on the bench. I don't know where else. So anyhow, after about 5 minutes, I looked at Gambo. I went, "Fucking tell me you're not man marking me, are you?" And he just fucking smirked as I say, "You fat twat." So anyhow, 2 minutes later, we're in front of their dugout. I'm literally 5 yards away from Baggy Eyes on the bench and Skifey. And I shout out, "Richo, don't fucking tell me you put Gambo on me man for man marking, will you?" And he just put his fucking head down and Skifey just went, "You fat twat." I says, Gambo, you were in for a fucking torrid time. So anyhow, after about 3 nutmegs later and 90 minutes later, he's sick of his fucking life. Honestly, had his life. But then, cut a long story short, about 20 years later, he puts on Facebook, I've just been in for a hip replacement. So I went, Gambo, you've never recovered since getting turned inside out all them years ago the week, Chief.
They were a disgrace, Blue Star. We played them for Seaham, and they had. Can remember the changing rooms had windows above the door, and we were due to go out, and getting the fucking team up. Come on, and yes, I went. Come on, lads, and all you seen was a fucking hand with 2 fingers on, and we couldn't get out the changing room, and Kenny Mitchell was saying, what's I said, the door's locked, we can't get out. It was Crumpy that locked us in, and he put his hands up against the window to show that it was him. We couldn't get out to get on the pitch. You know, and Crumpy, phenomenal goal scorer, phenomenal. And a good lad, funny lad.
You talk about characters. I mean, obviously, Crumpy came to Whitley Bay at the same time I went there. So the first year they went in the Northern Premier League, and we were playing a double header down Wales, and we played at Congleton at Stoke on the Saturday. Stayed overnight, and we had to travel down to Newtown in the middle of Wales on the Sunday. So obviously afternoon kick off. So anyhow, cut long story short, we get up for breakfast the next morning after a few sherbets on the Saturday night, as you do, and everybody's getting their breakfast, and fucking Bobby Graham's running around this little hotel. I said, what the fuck's the matter with him? What's the matter with you? He just wouldn't say no. He's running around. And there's somebody sitting on the table next to us with his hands on his head, chuckling like fuck, right? And I says, Crumpy, what the fuck are you doing? He says, fuck off, didn't say it out. He says, what are you doing? He says, I'm getting the spare key off the cleaner. I've been in his room. I've nicked the suitcase with all the pay packets in.
God, so to start the money big fucking hell.
So after about 20 minutes of Grammy pulling his hair out, he goes and puts the suitcase just outside his door. Grammy went absolutely ballistic.
Okay, now I can imagine. Well, he was assistant manager at Bobby Graham, Paul Dixon. No, we're talking about Saturday.
Well, he's on Newcastle radio now, isn't he?
He's on the radio. But you Crumpy, man.
Absolutely madness.
Stone, he once rang us and not football related. He said he took this bloke off the bus because the bloke had been having a go at him because he was a handful as well. He could handle himself and that. You cannot just be chucking people off the bus, Crumpy. He says he's fucking getting on me nerves. So I tell him off the bus like.
He's a bus driver. He's a bus driver. He's the boss.
He's finished now. He's retired.
He is.
Another thing that he did was they got Trevor Brooklyn to play for Blue Star.
Right.
And he played a few games, and Crumpy cut the fucking toes out of his socks. And Trevor Brooklyn went to pull his socks on after getting a shower, and he pulled the sock, and I went right up his fucking past his knee. You know, you're talking about like one of the greatest players that's ever played in this country, Trevor Brooklyn, and Crumpy's fucking cutting the toes out of his socks. He was that of like a bit of a Wimbledon thing going on at Blue Star. You know, cutting your socks and fucking putting your shoes up in bins, and they were remember he did well in the Northern League walks, did that? They did well in the Wayside League, but they never pulled any trees up in the Northern League.
They've done all right and spent a lot of money.
But they did spend a lot of money. They did spend a lot of money. But it was like I say, I played most of my football down in like Durham, and Teesside and that, and I met some and played with some good lads. But fuck me, can't Teesside is mourn.
Oh, fucking hell. They nearly qualified to be Townies, Smoggies, man. You know what I mean?
I think the worst in Townies worked. I'm in contact with a lad. Now you'll have played against him, Neil Hodgson. He was captain at Whitby when they won the ball. And I asked him, would he come on? And he said, no, I'm scared. I says, fucking scared, Hodgie. I said, Hodgie says, that's what I said, scared.
Next time you see Hodgie, just say you've been taught the fat lad. That's what Wolfie shouted on one day. He come in to leave one on us, and obviously the back foot caught him a little bit. And then he's chirping on, and Wolfie shouts, "Oh, look at your sock, Mara. Taxi for Hodgins."
he was a great player. There was
he's a hard little bastard.
Him, Mark Lawrence, another good player, Gary Hinsley. We came runners up in the league to Gretna.
Yes, yeah.
I remember having a fucking gunner with their walks on a Tuesday night at Gretna. It was like
the
only decent thing about playing at Gretna on a Tuesday night was Scotch pies after the game.
Decent growth.
It was fucking horrible. The whole place was horrible. But I suppose it was worse. But they won the league. They paid a lot of money and won the league. But I would say they were the best team that I played against. Is Blythe team.
That brings up kind of the next question as well. I mean, everyone that's been watching, like you say, so far, absolutely fantastic. I know we're hitting double figures, which is amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for everyone that's watching. If you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button as well. And just a question I always kind of ask people that come on as well. I mean, starting with yourself, Paul, where would you say, obviously, was the ground where you felt more hostile, the fans on your back, or you just couldn't have a good game? It never went right at that ground for you?
Never went right. Hostile was Blythe versus Spennymoor, or Blythe versus Bishop, and they used to stand on the front post and hoying the old 1p coins at you and calling you a fat bastard. The fat bastard didn't bother that for 40 years, so I made a fortune out of them, though. You know, I kept picking the money up and putting it in my pants, you know what I mean? Honestly, when Blythe played Spenny at Spenny, that was like, it was naughty, because midweek, or even on Saturday, 1,500, 2,000 there sometimes. Wow. Yeah, so it was like, it was a bit hostile. Never went right. Actually, somewhere like West Auckland, which wasn't the best of parks for, I'll say, footballers. And you had to win the battle before you win the race, you know what I mean? One of the hardest ones was South Bank, without a shadow of a doubt. Men and men were shape down there, and you really had to get stuck in. I'll tell you a tale about that. There's a lad I knew when I went away with the sort of England squad called big centre half. He says they went to South Bank in the quarter final of the FA Trophy, and he said, "What a shithole!" He says, "You know what it was like?" He says, "Hey, I'll tell you." He says, "How do you know?" He says, "Because they do that when they put the fucking tractor on. Leave the tractor tyres in the middle of the park. Enfield coming up from down south, the tractor had been on. They never rolled the tractor tyres out. They were playing in the shit heap."
It was a depressing hole as well, though, wasn't it? Was it stuck in the middle of South Bank? It was horrible.
It was a hard place to go, that fucking hell.
You're talking Blythe and Spenny. I was playing with Spennymoor, and them lads had moved on. They didn't really have as many, like, the three forwards Blythe had were fantastic. Stephen Pyle. What was the other lad called?
Buchanan,
and what the other lad? Was it Nicholson?
No, Gary Nicholson played sort of wide on the left and wide on the right. He was at Newcastle.
And they were a great side. And we were playing Blythe, and there's up at the top of the bank, just in front of the club. And Kevin Berry had played for Spennymoor, and if the Spennymoor fans like you were all right, but if they didn't fucking like you used to get tortured. And I mean, like, some of the stuff they used to say was cruel. And this one bloke did near post and fucking he's torturing Chuck, saying fucking use and Chuck's marking me on the front post, and he went, I'm sick of telling me dad not to come to games, you know. And I kicked off fucking laughing, and I took and I just thought, like, fucking how you can say something so cool as that when someone's basically calling your mother a fucking slag. That's how bad they were. They were hostile as fuck. And I always found Whitby not very nice walks. Maybe because we're playing with Gisborough, but them at Whitby were a little bit strange. But South Bank, the pitch was disgusting. Crook was horrible. Towlaw, I played a game at Towlaw. Two things happened to us there. One, we went off at half time, and the snow came down, and the referee abandoned the game. And I said to the referee, "Why? You knew what's fucking going to be bad. Now we've got to drive home. Why did you not let us can earlier?" Oh, we had to save the games. Honestly, there must have been a foot of snow fell. It was like that, and that happened regular up there. It was a horrible place to go. And one Christmas, I can't remember, was playing for Seaham, and it was a Boxing Day game, and I was coming on a sub, and one of the Towler blokes out the stand behind the dugouts, he shouted, "It looks like he's had a canny Christmas," and I was putting, I had put a bit of weight on, like, but I thought, you fucker. Anyway, I scored, and I collared him in the bar, and he was all right thing, but again, not a nice place to can't he? Can remember him, was Tony Knox? Is it Tony Knox?
Tony Knox, the centre back.
Aye, what a fucking arsehole he was. Just and
he was a tough fucker.
He was tough, and I speak to Mark Owen a lot, and Mark's a good lad, and had some right
bullet boots, you mean?
Bullet boots, yeah. But you would never get away from him.
He was
like Inspector Gadget, wasn't he? His legs used to, and he'd always catch you. But I speak to him a lot. He's a good lad. He's got his son's playing, and he does like a football lottery and that. And I speak to him a lot through that. And you know, he says we didn't like each other while we were playing, but now we're mates. I says, well, not that you didn't like each other, you're just rivals, you know. But Mark was a strange character. He was.
Centre halves are not blessed with brains, you know.
No. Well, you were apprentice for my sister's husband, and he was he would get away playing the day, Jeff. He was a good centre.
And what we're going to do now is get on to the quick fire. I know we've got a few stories at the end as well, especially the footballer moments, the funniest football. I know we've got a lot to tell as well. So what we're going to do, rather than going to one of yours than the others, we'll go for question one for both of yours, question two. So we'll go for yourself first, Paul. Number one, who would be the best manager that you worked under and why?
Johnny Marks called a spade, and he knew where he stood, and actually he wanted to play for him because he had so much passion. Was unbelievable. But I just used to say exactly the same. He only brought us north of the water to educate us and win something because she's the thickest fuck he is, Geordie. You know what I mean?
Brilliant. And for yourself, Will?
For me, Tony Munghouse at Spennymoor. Proper character. Knew non-league football. Used to like a laugh. But could lay it on you. He was brilliant, Tony, like. And he was very successful at Spennymoor. A nice fella as well. I think he's still alive. His daughter was...
He is as well. 80-odd.
80-odd year old, but a great bloke.
Brilliant. Excellent. And number two, Paul, the best teammate that you've played with and why?
Oh,
very tough.
Well, I'll name about 3 or 4 quickly. I'm struggling to separate them.
Definitely.
Les Mudry, centre forward of Blythe, who was a superstar. Jimmy Harmison, Steve Carney, who was like, rest in peace. He was the quickest and toughest things I've seen on a football field. The lad who, when we went to Blythe, Newcastle, and come back. Then you've got to talk of, Crumpy, Jerry McGee, Brian McGee, sorry. 3 of them are centre halves, but I tell you what, they could all play. But you look at Stevie Carney, he was just a machine, but absolutely an assassin with a strip on. But no, team from a pure teammate, I would say Jimmy Anderson though.
Yeah, brilliant. And for yourself, Will?
Staffy would be up there. Gibby would be up there as well. And Gambo, when he played centre off,
Not centre midfield.
Not centre midfield, no. He was a great defender, great competitor. But Staffy would be the best footballer. He was fantastic, but more interested in betting on horses and greyhounds than what he was on fucking football. How we knew what won the Grand National that day, I'll never know. 'Cause he was on the pitch, I would say Staffy, and Gibby was a good player. Gibby was, but he was prone to doing fucking stupid things.
Yeah, bitch. Number 3 for yourself, Paul. The best opposition player that you've played against.
Oh, what a question that is. There's numerous, but this might be a strange choice, and some people will remember him, some people will not. But there's a little, believe it or not, a little fat lad who used to play for Bishop and Crook, or Crook and Bishop, called Jackie Foster. Will you not remember him? He's just a bear.
Oh, me.
What a left peg. Honestly, I used to love playing against him. Even though I tried and put him in Rose Head, he was one of these drop a shoulder, about 5'4" tall, and I just enjoy watching him. Even though I was playing against him, even though I try and get Rob into him, it was just a pleasure to see him. He's died a few years ago as well, but what a good player. Maybe a strange choice that some people will think about and say, look at the players you played against, but actually I love playing against Jackie Foster.
Excellent. And yourself, Will?
Well, walks. Yeah, he used to walk on the field, and I bet you hundreds of things, and said, "Who's this fat baldy bastard?" But try get near him. He was frightening. I would say, out of all non-league and even some of my pro career, Walks is the best player. Never got shown up for fitness, or he wasn't. But what a player! What a player! What a player!
Excellent. And number 4 for yourself, Paul, your best footballer moment.
Oh, bloody hell. I should say putting the shirt on for my country. But actually, I'll say more satisfying. We beat Preston 2-0 in the third round of the FA Cup. And when I went in the Barber, Tom Finney was there. And he came up to us and said, "Well played, son. You must have played pro football the way you play today." And I ended up talking about 10 or 15 minutes. He just talked about football in general, but somebody like that comes up to you and gives you that sort of accolade. You gobsmacked a little bit.
That's fantastic, that. And yourself, Will?
Tranmere on a Friday night. Frank Worthington was the player manager, and we went in the bar after the game, and I was getting a pint at the bar, and Frank Worthington says, "It was well done, Willie. You had a good game." And I went back to one of the lads, I says, "Fucking Frank Worthington knows my name." I was flabbergasted, so a man of his, caliber, and so that for me, that Frank Worthington knew me, it was just amazing, because he was that good, and he was that good. It was just for him to know your name is, like you say, Will Walks said there, Tom Finney, that you dream about being as good as people like them. Yeah.
Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And number 5, which was the funniest football moment, which we'll get on, because I know there's a few that we're going to go through as well. Anybody that's watching, any comments, when you quickly want to get in as well, get them in the comments before we finish as well. But lads, I'll literally hand it over to yourself, because I know you've got quite a few funny football stories. I can't really wait to hear them all as well.
Is it? This was quite sad, but actually we pissed ourselves laughing. It was a Northern League presentation dinner, at the and the person involved, if he's listening, will fucking kill us for saying it. We were at the Newcastle, I don't know, Empire or whatever, Newcastle Town Hall, whatever it was, somewhere in Newcastle. Yeah, I didn't associate myself with that place, but never mind. And it come to the Player of the Year. And this will have been about, I'm going to say 1984 maybe, or 3, I can't remember. In that year was a phenomenal year for two people. Andy Toman, who fucking was a box-to-box midfield player, was like an absolute nightmare to play against. Because there's no way I'm going box-to-box. So fucking hell, he was too good for that. And he got 42 league goals from midfield.
Wow.
Tony McFadden, who was at Blythe with us, he got 49, and it was like come to the Player of the Year time at the dinner, and so McFadden sitting opposite me on the Blythe table, Tomo sitting on the next table with Bishops, and obviously it's full, and we said, and Tony really fancied his chance. We all thought he'd nailed it on, and this is where it gets fucking mad. So it goes up in third place for Player of the Year, 42 goals from Bishop Auckland, Andy Toman. And we went, fucking hell, Mackie, you must have nailed it if he's fucking finished third. And they both, honestly, they were just, everything touched that year went to gold. And it said, in second place, from Blythe Spartans with 49 league goals, Tony McFadden. And I fucking burst out laughing. I went, and McFadden at that time, you know, when somebody slides off the chair and they slide under the table, he fucking slid. He was flabbergasted. So the place went fucking silent, and there must have been, I bet there was about 600 people in the room. And everybody said, who the fuck's won that? And for me, coming from this neck of the woods down the Hetton, Easton, Peterlee area and things like that, and it said in first position from Shotton Colliery Welfare, for the amount of work he's done around the ground and helping build a new wall around the ground, Stewie Brown. And I went, fucking Jesus Christ. And I knew Stewie Brown quite well. I think it was Stewie, it's Brown definitely. And the place, you could have heard a pin drop. Nobody knew where he was apart from somebody who come on that neck of the woods. There must have been 60 tables there, and there's only one table clapping, there's only one table of new. McFadden was crying.
Was he?
Honestly, he was like absolutely devastated. 49 goals. Tomo gets 42, and I've built a brick wall, and I've got Player of the Year.
Player of the Year from the Northern League. That was the Northern League. All I would have won it.
They got so much shit because not against building the wall because he's a great lad, but honestly, McFadden and Tomo were like electric, and they couldn't even get Player of the Year.
That I told you this story on Saturday, but I remember Joe Worrell, the referee, walks.
Right.
I was playing a game, I think it was at Bury, and I was having a fucking nightmare. And every time I'd made a mistake, I was having to go Joe Worrell, fucking, like giving him pelters and whatever. Anyway, the ball got played up, and I went to play it out with my left foot to the winger, and I just went straight out to play. And Joe Worrell just ran past us and never broke stride and went, I suppose that was my fault as well, Willie, was it? And I went, fucking hell, fair play, Joe, like fucking, you know. One of the referees pulled my sister. She was out with Jeff, and she got a taxi from town, and they were trying to. He knew Jeff was a footballer, and he says, Allison says, "Oh, my brother played football." And he says, "What's your brother called?" It says, Willie Ferry. And it was Davy Binsley, the referee, and he was driving the taxi. He went, "Oh, we had a night out when he retired because we're that sick of him fucking moaning at refs." And but I couldn't help it. Walks will probably clear now. That's fucking because you're a townie, you know what I mean? But there's no characters, referees like there was then.
No, I'll tell you one about the referee shortly, but it's the next one for me was like Jimmy Pearson, who was a fucking great bloke, the Everton, Newcastle, Scotland centre forward. He's manager of Blythe, and we were top of the league actually at the time. And me and Stevie Carney, believe it or not, had a couple of dodgy games the last 2 games, and he's fucking got rivalries before the game. Used to fuckers. You better fucking get the nut out of here. I'm sick of you doing this. I'm sick of you doing that. You're just fucking coasting through the games. So me and Stevie took it on the chin. Jimmy fucks off and says, "Oh, well, fuck this. I'm not taking this shit anymore." So we'll have to fucking try a bit harder. Let's see. So anyhow, we actually, and remember as it was yesterday, we were playing Ferry at home. Jimmy just give us fucking 10 now before the start of the game. 10 minutes in, we 2-0 up. I've scored one and made one. 15 minutes, 3-0 up. I've laid one on for Stevie, so it's fucking 3-0 after 15 minutes. We've just been grilled, right? So we're walking back the halfway line. So I get to hold of Carney's arm and says, "Howie, there's a way." Says, "What are you doing?" "Just fucking walk with me, will you?" Fucking. So I get to hold of his arm. He walks from the centre circle in the halfway line over to the dugout, and Jimmy Payson wasn't watching. We walked over, we got 5 yards with there, and Jimmy turns round. He looks at us and says, "What the fuck do you want?" I just went, "Is that okay for you, boss?" And we just both walked up and pissed ourselves. He went, "You fat cunt." And every time I see him, I've seen him at 2 funerals in the last few years, and I'll see you 3-0 of 15 minutes, mad one, scored one. And I'm telling you, just says, "You cunt."
Brilliant, man.
That's great. Well, you got good crowds as well, Walks, didn't you? Like you say, Spennymoor with Blythe or Spennymoor with Bishops, Whitby, Gisborough. Whitby used to have always big crowds, and they were a fucking good side then.
Hostile places.
Very hostile again, and if you showed a bit of weakness or whatever, if you would have won the better players, they used to fucking torture you.
I took a little bit of flack, Will, actually, but they used to always say fat, and I couldn't understand it.
I couldn't understand that, mind you, to be fair. I couldn't.
You used to win the Spenny crowd when I used to lift my shirt up and tap my belly, though, you know what I mean? You know.
You think he's kidding? He's fucking not.
No, they got it like fucking.
Give it back. You've got to give it back.
No, you've got to. We had the dead serious. I remember Campbell and Scott.
Oh yeah.
Scotty. We're playing for Winley in West End on a Sunday morning, and Scotty was talking to this lad. We're playing in Stanley, where Scotty was from, and he was chatting to this lad. "Oh, great night last night, Alan. Do you all enjoy? We had a great night. I fucking thingy, whatever." And you know, we'll have to date again and whatever. Anyway, after about 2 minutes, Scotty had 2-footed him, and he got about 30 foot up in the air, and the lad went, "Fucking hell, Alan. I was only out here last night with best mates." He said, "There's no fucking mates on here." And I thought, like, fucking. He was shocking, Alan. Like, he was an
assassin. So about referees, we had obviously Jeff Winter had fucking, you know, every time we played in the Northern League, he used to take me fucking name and I say, "Fucking hell, what you ask me name for? Just write the fucker down, will you?"
I know.
Cut a long story short, I'm in the latter part of my career at about fucking 39-year-old playing down Thornaby. And the referee comes in and says, "Listen, lads, it comes in as far as that. I'm getting assessed today, so no swear and none of this, none of that, because if you do it, I'm going to have to send you off." So anyhow, goes on the field. After about fucking 15 minutes, we got a throw-in next to the dugout of Thornaby. And coincidentally, I picks the ball up, just looks into the people that's sitting there. Who's sitting there but Jeff Winter? And I went, "Oh, fucking hell, nailed on this." So I shout, Ref, have you got a minute? Come over. We got a minute. I need to ask you something." So this is fucking 10, 15 minutes of the game. So the ref comes over, "What's the matter? What's the matter?" And I turns around to the crowd and I went, "Don't fucking tell me he's assessing you, by the way, because he was shite when he was in the Northern League." And I just fucking ran away. Jeff Winter coloured us after the game. He says, "You clever fat cunt." I says, "No, I tell you how clever I am. You get the party, get the fucking bees in, Jeff," and he did.
Yeah. I didn't mind him actually. I thought he was one of the better ones, but there was a referee, Sunderland lad. I don't know if you can remember him. Billy Angus.
No,
he had the ball in that, and we were playing for Seaham, and someone was fucking from the crowd was giving him pelters. And then they start shouting, "Behind you, ref, behind you!" And Billy turned around and he went, "What are we in a fucking pantomime?" And honestly, everyone on the pitch was fucking pissing themselves laughing. And they were a bit better. The referees had a little bit about them, and they weren't arrogant like they are now. Cause,
what do you call the one that went to Dubai, man? The Premier League referee. Newcastle.
He's going to do the refereeing for the new Gladiator show, Clattenburg.
Anyhow, good luck. This is another one. Clattenburg, must have been one of his first games in the Northern League. He's at Blythe. I don't know where we were playing. Obviously, I'm captain. I've gone up. And I fucking gives him the once over. And he looked about fucking 17.
I think he was the youngest.
And I went for fucking, he's going to get somebody here. We're going to get stuck in them. So it goes to the top. Hey, ref, how are you doing? Nice to meet you. My name's such. Oh, Paul Walker, blah, blah. I says, before we touch up, ref, can I just ask you a question? He says, what's the matter? I says, do you use fucking Nimac on your legs or just like fucking 15-year-old? He went, oh, it's not very clever, couldn't be, have I? Every time I was running past him in the game, I says, ref, your legs look fucking beautiful.
I think the refs are a little bit. I've just had a message off Stewie Sherwood, and he says, "Classmate." So I think
you don't mind us saying this. So Catcock's been on the phone here.
He was a good manager, Stu. He was, and he's a good lad. He's a good lad. Funny as fuck.
By the way, in that story you told about him, man, Willie, there's a slight different angle on it from my side. There was one tackle in the game where he got the ball stuck in his legs and he fell out.
Right. Yeah.
And I'm running towards him, and I'm absolutely going to half him. And he, when a little kid puts his legs and his arms in the air and squeal.
Yeah.
Oh, honestly, he squealed like a little lass. And if he's listening, it's even better.
He's listening. He just sent us a message there, and he'll be out in the middle of the night.
Oh.
So he went. He said, "Oh, where that fucking hell's gone off." I love him. I live him by the way.
He squealed like a little lass.
He was an exceptional manager when we had him at Everton.
Didn't it say that, Willie? He'd be walking around like a dog with two cocks at the minute, man.
Yeah, I know that, but I like Stewie.
All I've got to say, Willie, Hetton used to have a football club till he won some trophies, spent a fortune, and nicked off and left the club nearly bankrupt. And he knows that's the truth, and he hates it.
He's a cool man.
He's all right. He's not bad for a little shit.
He's a good lad. I tell you what, he says, you're right, mate. Wags, he says, you're right, mate. I tell you, he used to train with us when we were at Everton. Jimmy Adams, a cricketer. And I think he was at Everton. He
was at that cricket club up the road that we didn't mention. It's like me mentioning Newcastle, you know what I mean?
Everton Cricket Club. But he was a good lad, and I've got him on Facebook, and he remembers all the lads and that.
Jimmy was in the Lions 2 weeks ago. He calls in to see us every time he's here.
Yeah, he's a really nice fella. He's spot on.
Aye.
No, some fantastic stories. Like I say, hopefully one day we'll get out one of your reunions. Well, I would love to come in. So the story is absolutely brilliant, man. Kept us laughing all night. Fantastic. I know it's still almost double figures watching still now as well. As well.
Fantastic. You'll have to. Can you make sure you come out when Scotty's on one side and Willie's on the other? You might have full body between them. You know what I mean?
Well, Scotty's only lost one leg, and I've lost fucking two.
I know, but. You're right, one. You only stood on it anyhow, didn't you?
Well, I did. I did.
Excellent. But no, again, everyone been watching throughout the night. Absolutely fantastic support as always. And like I say, if you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button as well. Like I say, we love doing these shows. It's all for you. And like I say, the managers, players, everyone that we talk about, some fantastic stories as well. And Paul and Will, thank you so much for coming on. I think we'll have to do part two as well. I know that probably loads more stories as well. Try and get a few more of the lads on as well. But lads, thank you very much for coming on the show tonight.
See you. Cheers. Excellent.
Cheers. God bless. I'll see you at the West End, James.